Kæru gestir, ánægilegt að koma hér saman í dag og heyra frá tveimur áhugaverðum Fulbright fræðimönnum sem hafa dvalið hér síðustu mánuði. Viðburðurinn fer fram á ensku og mun ég nú skipta yfir. Dear guests, I welcome you all to this Fulbright Forum where we have two Fulbright scholars presenting today. Let me note that we're also on Zoom for those who can't be here in person. And I also note that we're recording. We will be taking questions after the presentations. So for those who are attending virtually, you can type questions into Zoom. Today, we're going to hear from two very different but wonderful Fulbright scholars who've been working hard here in Iceland. I expect their journeys have been quite different in some ways, although I hope they both had a great experience and made lasting connections and made progress in their fields that will benefit and enrich our societies. We're going to start with Jeff. Give a warm welcome to him, please. He's our second recipient of the Fulbright Greece-Iceland Award for Arts and Design, which is a joint grant that aims to promote artistic cooperation and allow accomplished U.S. artists to gain inspiration from both the Arctic and the Mediterranean. Following his 3 months here in Iceland, which are coming to an end, he'll spend 3 months in Athens. Jeff's an adjunct in 3D arts at Massachusetts College of Art and Design in Boston, and he's hosted by the Reykjavík School of Visual Arts. He's a sculptor and has been exploring geologic materials here in Iceland. So please tell us about your project and experiences.
Thank you, Belinda, for that. That was a great introduction, and thanks so much to the commission, the Fulbright Commission here in Iceland. It's been so wonderful to be here, and Peter and Ragna and Belinda have been so welcoming, as well as my host institution in Reykjavík, which is the Reykjavík School of Visual Arts, which is also called Myndlistaskólinn í Reykjavík. And it's just been a really, really wonderful time at the host institution and also at the commission, and also just in Reykjavik and Iceland in general. I've been here since late August with my wife and 2 little kids, Felix and Sabine, and they have loved it here. So it's just been a really, really nice time to be here doing the thing that I love to do and in a place that I love with the people I love to be with. So here's my work from my art practice prior to coming here. There's a lot of, as you'll see with this work, I have a really deep love of geology and earth materials, and my background is in visual arts, but I also studied geology in undergraduate, and it's followed me. That passion has followed me, and as I combine the two together and try to meld those two, I get a lot of inspiration from a ton of inspiration from geology and trying to understand the geological processes and materials and sort of infuse my life with those kinds of things. So you'll see with these pieces, there's an interest in rocks and in also textures. So I'm trying to be very experimental with glazes and surfaces. And the reason I wanted to come to Iceland is to explore those really raw, natural geological materials that Iceland has in abundance, and also in a very active and sort of new and accessible landscape. So, and Iceland has just been really extremely wonderful in that regard. So my first sort of methodology, first steps in getting going here were identifying where I could go to source materials. So that began really with reading textbooks and that kind of information, but also meeting with people who know more than I do about the subject. So for my field work, really on finding locations that have been studied before, some of which have been studied well. Others are, completely sort of new to people, especially in the ceramics world. One group that has done a similar project, a precedent project, is a group called the Search for Porcelain, which a few years ago was Leer ook Porcelain, which is been inspirational for me and really helpful. They've been really helpful with sharing their locations and information with me. So as I go on, you'll see in the field, I have my really excellent field assistants. We've gone to collect materials all over mostly the western portion of Iceland from north to south. And it's been really wonderful being out in the landscape, and then bringing those things back to the studio to work with. So what I'm doing here is I'm identifying clays and just really loving all the materials: basalt, sands, black sands, sharing it with my family. This is Sabine and Felix, and here I am in the West Fjords. Finding clay. This is a really great place, a great view of a good place to look for clay, because this is a fjord, a valley coming down. You can see a river, a couple rivers coming down, streams coming into like a flat plain, and this would be a perfect place for clays to deposit. And so I'm looking at the sort of river, the edge of the river, looking for accessible locations to dig clay. So I'm sampling for, what am I looking for when I'm out there? Since I'm trying to make work that's more sculptural, I didn't want to just focus on clay, and because clay and some of the materials that have been used in Iceland and are sort of known about for in the ceramic world are volcanic ashes that make really wonderful glazes. Good. So these are some sample locations, from, as I said, from the West Fjords up here, which was incredible, and all the way down here. Some good clays around here and here, and then very interesting volcanic rocks here. And another thing I didn't mention is the other kinds of clays here, the hydrothermal clays, which are very interesting, and something that I started to work with a little bit, but haven't. That I could do a whole nother Fulbright on just the hydrothermal clays here, which are very interesting and very distinct from anywhere else. Mm. Here's an image of all the different materials collected from my travels. Okay, so you can see the range of different materials that I'm interested in. This is from the red sand beach, the Redsunder. Doesn't look too red here, but it's a mix of basalt and calcium from shells. And then here's a clay. This is kind of like a compacted clay, red basalt, green basalt, black sand. So real range of stuff here. So this is how I started off. I did melt tests to identify what materials are going to melt at what temperatures, because I'm working in a ceramics studio and with ceramic processes. So I arranged them, A is for ashes, V is for volcanic rocks, C is for clays. And you can see at 1,000 degrees, not much is happening. Things are changing color, and it's really beautiful color changes, because a lot of the basalts are oxidizing, and they're turning red and they're turning purple. It's really beautiful. But then at 12:12-ish, things really start to melt, and you get a lot of the volcanic ashes are melting, even the clays are melting, and they turn into a beautiful glaze on their own. But like I said, I'm not really that interested in in the glaze right now. This is not, I'm more interested in the raw materials. So I wanted to see what was standing up to the heat. So again, this is some samples from my travels to the West Fjords, raw, 1,000 degrees temperature here. You can see the color changes. And then here at 1220, things are really melting and they're really puddling up. Some of the rocks are holding up though, so that's very interesting to me. Here's a really good example of, this is raw sort of scoria from Reykjavík Peninsula, just pushed into the surface of clay right here. And then it's fired to 1,000 degrees, and here it's 1220, and you can see and in fact, Josie, can you pass that piece out? That one, yeah. You can pass it around, actually. Yeah. And take a look at that surface, and you can see that you can pass it, yeah. The materials are really puddling up and really starting to flow. So I'm really interested in the place between these two places. So what can be done? How can I work with the material and before it's really puddling up, how can I use it in the kiln and do something sculptural with it? This is an image of my studio here and all the different materials, so I'm able to just really use them and use them in a very sort of improvisational way, but also testing things. I'm considering all of the sculptures that I've made. Most of them are wall pieces, but they're on the table now. But I would consider them all tests. So they're all sort of trying to experiment, do something new. And so one example is just by taking raw clay and mixing it with some standard known sort of commercial clay. And this clay it's going to really change the color and give it a lot of texture, but it's not going to melt everywhere. So I was doing some amount of material sieving and crushing and to try to get the materials into a state of where I wanted to use them. But I was also trying to be very raw with them and very use them in their. So a lot of the clays I did not sieve out the biological materials. So there's sometimes blades of grass and roots of grass in the material, and I really love that. So some of the things I discovered through this process was, just the fact that I can use basalt so readily in my work by pressing it into the clay in this instance, and this is fired to a higher temperature, a little higher, but the material is starting to melt, and this one is fired a little lower, so it holds its form but changes color. So this one is sand, black sand, just spread on the surface of a wet clay, and then I patted it down so it's really just on the surface, but it's embedded. It's really, really beautiful. And then another thing here is glaze effects, mixing the materials with glaze and then sprinkling on top of the glaze as well to get a really nice surface. Some examples, and these pieces are here actually on this table. But these pieces are cast with glaze, so they're really not made of ceramic materials necessarily. The ceramic materials are more just on the surface in a way to connect my hand to the object and my making, but also to connect the process, like the ceramic process. I'm really invested in ceramics because I love this idea of making my own rocks through the ceramic process and through the kiln, the heat of the kiln. Here's another piece that's also over here. You can see that piece is made by basically putting sand and different aggregate materials on a surface that I've glazed. So this is actually a ceramic piece that I glazed, and then the glaze I poured sand on top, and as the glaze turns to as it melts and turns honey-like, it grabs on to the sand. more pieces like that. And so this one, you can see I'm really using some really raw materials and making them even more gritty and textured. And some other pieces that even getting more sculptural here. So there's the two pieces on the left are wall pieces, and the piece here is sculpture that I've made with a ceramic element on the inside, but everything else is just scoria and glaze and sand. So it's just a real mixture. And I love, I feel like it's really speaking to the earth and the earth processes in Iceland. Some couple tiles that are not here, but these are tiles where I've pressed same gravel right into the surface, and this one has some Icelandic clay mixed into a white clay, so you can see the color and variation of surface. These ones are again working with the different materials. Like this one in the middle has Icelandic clay mixed with a stoneware clay, laid onto a surface, onto a tile, and the one on the left is these volcanic rocks pushed directly into the clay, and as well on the one on the right, but it also has sand on it. So I'm just feeling really loving all the different materials and really trying to combine them into one piece here. And another thing that I'm really eager about and excited moving forward, and it's another discovery is the idea of cutting these rocks, cutting basalt rocks and using those as elements in my work. So Katrin, next to you is a few examples of some cut basalt, and using the glaze to adhere the cut basalt pieces onto the tile is a next step for me and an interest. And that's something that I can bring forward to my next step, which is going to Greece. And so you have columns here. They have columns there. And so I think that what's next is continuing with this idea. Of course, there's a completely different landscape and different materials from Iceland to Greece, but the materials are imbued with meaning as well there, from the historically significant ceramic materials that have been used for millennia there, to the really new and coarse materials here that I've really enjoyed using. So that is talk for the other. Thank you for your patience through the difficulties there that we had. But here's I'll leave you on just some of the different textures and different rocks and geological formations that I've been inspired by. And thank you so much for the Fulbright Commission and also for my listskolen.
That was absolutely wonderful. I want to ask if we have any questions.
There is a question from the
let's
Zoom.
start with that.
And it's from Nicole Record,
Oh.
just recent. She asked, "Did you get permissions to remove raw materials from the land?"
I say yes.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
No, in some cases, road cuts, I imagine, where I wasn't really going onto private property so much. I definitely didn't source any materials from national parks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of these materials are quite abundant.
And honestly,
Yes.
if I were to stay here longer, along the roads, if you're driving around Iceland, you see that the works department or the highway department has made huge they've sort of made gravel pits and they have different size gravels, and that's a great place for me to go and find materials because it's already been sorted. Yes.
Thanks, Jeff. That was so cool. I think that most biologists wish they were artists, so myself included. So I was just wondering because the one that's not here, but it has like the pink swirl and it almost looks like a rock. It looks like a Jeff-made geode in a way, where it's like. So I'm just wondering, is that definitely accurate? Like how it feels?
Absolutely geode inspired.
Oh, cool.
I've made similar pieces prior to coming here from that series that were hand-built sculptures, thinking of them as mineral slices or specimens, but then also taking it one step further by actually making it like three-dimensional rather than just a flat, clean slice of agate, So I'm trying to build dimension into it and also kind of speak to other references like mining is one reference.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question. Well, I actually have a couple of questions, just real quick. And I actually love that piece that you were talking about too. I thought it was absolutely gorgeous, as are these. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. But so you're going to Greece is it in January or
end of January?
End of January. And then do you foresee doing then more when you get back home or doing a show or what do you foresee sort of coming out of it once you've had more time? The goal is definitely to have a show or multiple shows, and I have some possibilities lined up in New England where I'm from, but I can see that this might be a longer term project that might have me coming back, hopefully.
Yeah, because I feel like the materials here are very, very special and very inspiring to me. And I think Greece as well in a different way, totally different way.
Exactly.
But I really love here it's been so much geology, and I'm really excited to go to Greece and have the sort of the cultural and the historical significance, sort of come in, and the two really working together. And I feel like the work is going to grow from there.
Exactly, and I think it will be so interesting to see different pieces. And sort of connect them and all of that together. So of course I'm angling for an invitation. Open your show. Yes, exactly. And then I thought, just as a final question I want to ask, because we always sort of market ourselves as a family-friendly environment here in Iceland, and you came here with your family and your two kids. What are the things that they have enjoyed here the most, do you think? Or how has this been a sort of eye-opening or life-changing experience for them?
Well, living in Reykjavík has been really special because it's a very cosmopolitan, compact city, and it's really accessible, easy to get around, and it's also especially easy to get out of the city. And even in the city, there are some really beautiful places that we can explore and just really quickly, go to the beach and be there in a beautiful place. So I've really enjoyed that. But the pools have been it's been really about the pools and the hot water and the water slides and the kids just could go every day, really. They love it so much. So that's been, and there's playgrounds kind of on every block. So it's just been really perfect for, especially the little kids. It's been really perfect.
And they're in school, so they're picking up some
Icelandic school,
which we don't understand fully, but they'll be like arguing, and I think it's gibberish, and then all of a sudden it's revealed that like, oh no, she's like saying this word to him that he's like, no, stop! I wasn't saying that. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's been a great experience for all of us.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a little swag for you here from Fulbright Iceland.
Oh.
And a Fulbright Iceland pin.
Thank you.
And one more thing.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so our second speaker today is Josie, who's a recipient of the Fulbright Iceland NSF Distinguished Arctic Research Scholar Grant. It's a mouthful. She is an associate professor of medical science at Colorado State University. And here in Iceland, Josie's been working with the University of Iceland and researching sleep and circadian rhythms and their effect on mental health. So Dr. Broussard, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Ooh, it's hard to go after the artists. I don't have any sculptures to pass around, but I'm so happy to present some of the work that I've been doing, both here, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I'll take home with me and just work on then. But actually, before I want to talk about Iceland, I actually want to thank and acknowledge my home lab, because actually it's them that kept the ship going and kept everything going from the home front, and I really wouldn't have been able to come here if I didn't have such a strong team running all my studies at home. So I am making them official Icelanders who are really with me all along the way, and some of them it looks like might be on Zoom super early, so they're zooming from bed hopefully, but they don't know this, but they're all getting Viking hats for the holidays that I've of course now since learned that it's not actually a real Viking thing, but anyway, we'll pretend. So they kept me involved. This is them having like their lab meeting, and they've propped me in different ways all around the department. So there I am participating, so I didn't have too much FOMO. And they even had me participate in Halloween and made signs. And I would get random texts from my other colleagues saying, do you know that your lab has placed you strategically throughout the department? So that was kind of a nice way to stay involved and feel like I was connected at home. But what do I really study? So I pulled out this figure actually just yesterday because it's very, very recent, but this is total world disease burden from non-communicable diseases. And the interesting thing about leaving the US and studying disease is I can look at it now from a world view rather than just a US worldview or US view and problems. So these are what's called DALYs, disability adjusted life years per year. So this is actually used to measure the total burden of disease in life years lost and also years lived with disability. So you can see billions and billions of years of life years are lost per year from these different diseases. And you can see quite a huge swath of those years are taken away by cardiovascular disease, which is a main focus of my research, but also metabolic disease. So my lab really focuses on this fact, which is that sleep and circadian disruption are risk factors for cardiometabolic disease. And so my lab is really interested in why and how that's true. But my work in Colorado is almost exclusively controlled inpatient studies. Even when we go out into the world, we essentially still bring people back to the lab, and that's where we do all of our assessments. This is an example. This is what my lab looks like. And in a way, this is like what my life looks like. In the US, this is like very small and kind of zoomed in because I work extremely remotely actually from home. And the lab is this like controlled, super clean environment. And Jeff was making fun of me about my spreadsheets, and I love spreadsheets, but actually your spreadsheet game was pretty strong. I saw how you like coded all of those. So anyway, so lots of spreadsheets run my life. So an example also of some of the things we do in the inpatient lab is this is a specially built lab that actually has a through-the-wall blood sampling port. It looks like a light switch, but actually what we can do is run really long IV tubes from the patient through the wall and sample blood from outside the room without waking people up. So this gives you an idea of kind of the work that's done in Colorado. So how did I end up in Iceland? And the reason I really wanted to come to Iceland, well, one thing is I'm a Mainer by heart, and it's been really fun. I've met more Mainers here than anywhere else in my life, like not even in hardly Maine, probably, and more New Englanders, like you heard from Jeff. So I think Mainers have a special place in their heart and mind for someday going to Iceland. There's like some like brotherly love kind of thing going on there. With the weather and the northern latitudes. But really, I came to Iceland because I don't do population studies, and Iceland is, of course, extremely well known for doing really excellent population studies, especially in the cardiovascular disease space. But then as a sleep researcher, every sleep researcher wonders about Iceland and the light and how people sleep and circadian rhythms. So there was like always this pull to try to go to Iceland. So when I was looking for a host family, as I've now started to call you guys in the back, I was asking my sleep colleagues, did they know anyone doing sleep or related work in Iceland? And that is how I ended up connecting with the Health Journey study, or, as I learned,
Hälsu ferða lægið. Så försöka befästa hälsu ferða lægið.
So that's Runa going faster.
Ferða
Lægið. So that's Runa I'll never forget, and I must have listened to that like 1,000 times. Because of course it's my very good friend now, Runa, in the back, teaching me how to say hälsu ferða lægið. So the Health Journey study. So run by Dr. Erlinger Johansson, Nana Arnardottir, and Suna, who's here in the back, guest doctor. So so actually was able to connect with this team that I had never met before, but learned about this really interesting study from actually Dr. Kong Chen, who's at the NIH in the US. And so he actually connected me to this network, which, as you can see, is spanning many, many different countries. And I was able to actually meet the entire study team because we happened to have a large study visit while I was here, which was really special and worked out really exceptionally well. So what's the objective of this study? So the overall research aim of the project was to track the health, essentially a health and stability of mental and physical health in this Icelandic cohort, all born in 1988. So this is a study that's actually been running now for many, many years and multiple decades. And I was able to connect with this group right before the third and last data collection piece. It's sponsored very extensively throughout Iceland, but also from NIH. And you can see, I think this is the oldest sponsor, has been with the study team for 20 years now, I think. And so this is where I was able to get my rental car with a really good discount. Okay, so the cohort so they're born in 1988, so they're kind of in really solidly adult early middle life, but they were also assessed as younger Icelanders around 15 years of age, and then again 23 years of age, and all told, based on the number of participants the study has touched and with whom the study has interacted, it's estimated that about 20% of the population of this year has actually come into contact with the study team in some way. The participants were collected from 18 randomly chosen samples, so very initially from high schools across Iceland. So you can see 60% from the capital area, and then from other urban areas, and then rural areas. And the most recent data collection, so this is what ended up being so fortunate, is because the recent data collection period actually just ended this past summer, so just before I arrived. And you can see here where the data collection centers were for this third installment. An overview of the study from the different collection periods. So you can see there was physical health and mental health assessed in the very first data collection, and similarly in the second, but now you can see they've added sleep to the third assessment. So that's where I come in to work on these data. Oh, that's just to zoom in. Okay, so what are the things? So this is what I think is so exceptional about this study is it's a population-based study. So typically you would think you can, we're doing questionnaires and things that are a bit easier to assess, but they actually were also able to add these really rigorous measures to the study. So we can measure physical activity, blood pressure. We use the watches also to measure sleep, grip strength, which can be actually a surrogate for physical health and a prediction of long-term health and well-being. Many hundreds of participants came into the different labs throughout the country to do a fitness test and also to get a body scan to look at fat mass and lean mass. And there's all the things that talk about. So I really worked a lot with the accelerometer data. So it's the Actigraph GT3X, and participants wore these for approximately 1 week, plus or minus 7 days. And we're using this to measure sleep duration, different aspects of sleep quality, but also physical activity of different levels. So some preliminary findings, so very, very early, and I should have mentioned it's down on the slide for people online, but these are actually slides courtesy of Nana. So the health journey slides were provided me by Nana. So some preliminary findings from the blood pressure. So I was really surprised by this because when I first came to Iceland, I was imagining that they would be maybe more protected from the disease burden that we see in the US. But interestingly, you can see 40% of participants for whom we measured blood pressure are normal, but actually quite a few in this relatively young, healthy age range are actually in early stage hypertension. So you can see there 40% of the population have stage 1 hypertension with another 10% elevated. So really more than 50% of this age group population is actually already showing early signs of cardiovascular disease. From a physical activity point, things are looking a little bit better. You can see that many participants in this age group are getting a recommended number of exercise per week. It's also important to note that the exercise, this particular data are self-report, which people tend to overestimate a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you estimate that some of that is actually coming down, then obviously this is an area where Iceland, like the US, can stand to improve as far as increasing exercise. But what about the sleep data? So preliminary findings from the sleep are the data analysis are ongoing, and I'll tell you a bit why about that. And it's the reason I went to the University of Akureyri to meet and hang out with Nana, who's up there, because there are over 300 participants for whom we have ActiWatch, the Actigraph data. So that's 7 days of data and 24 hours per day of data analysis that we need to review and score. And actually, it results in about just over 50,000 hours of data that we're working through scoring. So actually, we went up, I was up there very recently, and Nana and I sat kind of morning till night scoring the data, sitting together and working together. And it was a tough time to be up there and doing that level of data analysis because it's so dark. So I was just telling Oren that I didn't see the sun for many days until the weekend. But anyway, but that was a wonderful experience. And we got through, I think right now we're at least a third. I think Nana's also online, so she can tell me for real. But I think we're about 1/3 of the way through the data analysis, and it's something that I will continue to do from home. So what else? The other special thing I got to do in Akureyri was do a lot of exploring outside. Nana took me to the Jolahus, and I was able to get some Christmas ornaments to bring home. And I also was very excited to see the same artist that made the sculpture down by the waterfront here. And so that's Goðafoss, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the diamond circle. So now we are transitioning into the photo exhibit portion of my presentation. So I mentioned that the study team came to visit while I was here. So we had an all-day scientific conference where I got to present some of my data that I do at home in Colorado. This is one of my very first experiences touring around the country, because as you can see, that's in front of the Blue Lagoon with my host Erlinger. And actually, my parents were here for that. So he took really good care of them, took my parents around. And we actually also went and baked bread in Earth. So that was really special. Another thing that we did, and Erlinger took the entire study team to Freetheimer. So we were able to experience that. all the different tomato-based dishes. And this has been, someone was so surprised yesterday when I said one of my favorite things was the food. But look, this is at Groska. Oh, you guys know the bag. This is my favorite place to go and get a staff discount. It is the best fish I've ever had in my life. And then, of course, this is also the lamb soup. And then, of course, the bakeries. And Erlinger makes his own blueberry jam that he gets from his blueberries in the forest. And so I just love the name, Lawberry. A couple other things. So that's kind of the food. I was super lucky because I was also able to see the PhD defense of Ottar, and he's part of the study team on Health Journey. And this is one of the biggest things I'm going to take back from this presentation. I was texting my home department chairs and friends saying, we are doing it all wrong. We need to adapt the Iceland PhD defense strategy. So that's an almost immediate thing I want to implement with my students going home, is all the things that I learned from that. Another thing I just want to point out is that how many visitors. I haven't seen this much of my family in like 20 years. So my parents came to visit. One of my brothers came to visit. My aunt and uncle came to visit. And actually, one of my trainees was here at the same time as me, completely serendipitously. So actually brought her into the commission and met everybody. So she's hopefully a future Fulbrighter. Mm-hmm. In addition to all of those visitors, my family, so my husband and kids, came to visit right at my halfway point for a long weekend. And we got to go to some football games, which I'll show you a bit more about, but also Perlin, Isha, and the lava show. When my brother was here, I taught online from the lobby of the lava show. And also once when we were at the movies, remember I had to take a conference call. So I've been able to mix a lot of work into life here. It's almost the drawback of having the time zone allow you to work at both places. Oh, but look at this. I went to every national team football game that happened while I was here in Iceland. And actually that's because Rona in the back was able to get me the tickets. But I saw Azerbaijan, Ukraine, and France. That was one of the highlights for me, but also for my 9-year-old. And this is just them, the kids exploring the city. But really, I want to thank my new friends and colleagues because that's been the absolute highlight. I get to say I have real Iceland friends, and many of them are in the back. I started calling you the host family, but first want to just give a thank you to Runa, who's here, who was my very first Iceland friend, and I met her on one of my first days, and she started teaching me about Iceland culture and how they do things. And then I actually got to go and see her husband, Pablo, who is a professional footballer, and got to see him play in his very last match with Vikingur. Also have been teaching as a guest teacher with Vaka and Greta, and actually taught my last class yesterday. Suna, who's here, and I wanted to thank you for being such a wonderful host. Orn, who I didn't have a selfie of, but ran into outside. Nothing better than running into people on the streets of Reykjavík and make you feel like you really live here. I ran into Orn on the walk in. I used to run into Raymond, another Fulbrighter, all the time. Actually, at the soccer match, ran into Nana from Akureyri at the football game. And actually, it was with my family, so I was proving to them, I live here. You see, I live here. This is so wonderful. Mari, who might be online, was also a wonderful companion. She was here for almost the same exact amount of time as me, and she's part of the Health Journey study. So together, we saw the Northern Lights. She taught me how to go to the pools, and helped me find my favorite ice cream. It's funny because, you guys have to suffer through all my slideshows. Nana, like I said, this was one of the highlights of my trip, was going up to Akureyri and getting to spend really amazing quality time with Nana. We went with her daughter to the Christmas house, but also she took me to Skogaba, the forest lagoon. And this is us doing data analysis and then pontificating and thinking about science as we had lunch many days. And actually, in Akureyri, met the former president of Iceland. So I like to say, to my tuning in onliners, I basically met the Barack Obama of Iceland, the former president. And so that was really exciting. Just coffee shop and took pictures. Other experiences, I mentioned the rye bread ice cream has been a favorite, cinnamon rolls, and I was here for the blizzard, which was really special, even though I know it's probably kind of a pain in the butt for people who live here, but for me it was really exciting because I got to text pictures of what I call my Arctic commute, which is the walk through the park to Old Saga. One of the last things I got to experience before I went to Akureyri was the Women's March and Pink Day, where I randomly, coincidentally, just wore a pink sweater to work, and then got to be part of it and all the festivities. But for my very final thank yous, I just want to thank Erlinger and his wife Laura, who really took care of me and had me to their house many, many times, and were just like the most beautiful, wonderful hosts, and now really good friends. Oh. Sorry. And all my Fulbrighters, Jeff and Nicole, who became one of my best friends, and we spent a lot of time together. I made it almost to the end, though. Okay, so hopefully you can hear this, because I also got to be part of the Viking clap, which was really amazing. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. This is my kids were absolutely thrilled to be part of this. Anyway, so. With that, I'll just thank you for a wonderful time in Iceland.
Such a lovely presentation. Questions?
Yeah, thinking about the science.
Questions, yeah. I can maybe start. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the difference in the PhD defense. What was it that you really sort of thought was different and that you would like to take?
Oh yeah, great question. So in Iceland, I don't know like where to start. The differences. So at that presentation, there was the PhD committee that kind of was essentially sitting in the audience. Their job was done. Yeah. And instead, there were two invited opponents who discussed and queried the defender, the PhD, the student, about his project. And really, I mean, we were there for multiple hours, where the first presenter got into, many questions, kind of decisions that were made. And then the second person, they had coordinated beforehand. So she then asked more about like nitty gritty things, about the details of the statistics, things like that. So it's so different. So from in the US, and it's different across many institutions, but essentially the committee is also the opponent. And Icelanders could not believe that we do it like that. So it's really interesting to now see that comparison, because the committee then has to ask these tough questions, and that they've sort of been asking the whole time and teaching the student about the whole time. And you also have a wonderful relationship with the trainee at that point. So it's hard to try to set them up for this really critical question. So it's really difficult balancing act. And yeah, I mean, whether they know it or not. So that makes things just really complicated. So I thought, wow, that's such a beautiful distance to be able, the committee's job is done. And then it also allows the committee to help more. Because in a way, in the US, we have to hold something back because we need to be able to ask them something at the end. So I thought that was I just loved it. And then, of course, you get to see your student talking to an expert in the field. And that's really proof of being ready to get the PhD, because you can have this really high level scientific collegial discussion with someone in the field, and it's not the committee. So that's what I'll try to do when I get home. We'll see. Great. The students listening are like, no.
And then maybe I'll,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's from the
Did you
NIH.
have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I know you're working through the data and all of that, but is there information about, like living in a Nordic country and like what kind of stress that might put under people, how is that different than living at a latitude more
Without the
equatorial? You're like, and is that a contributing factor for cardiovascular, disease?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think the interesting thing is they'll have both extremes. So whereas some of the research and the population-based data that we have from the US suggests this link between short sleep duration and increased disease risk, but that would be more chronic in a way. That might be very different in Iceland, where you might actually have longer sleep in the winter. And that's what I'm learning from a lot of colleagues. They tend to extend their sleep in the winter and tend to shorten it when it's kind of light all the time. And so there's some findings in my field and my work that high variability can also be associated. So we don't know. Well, it'll be so exciting to look at that in the data because we will have such variability. As you saw, or if you happen to look, the data collection was from October to June. So it will span some high variability in light times. So we'll be able to look at that, but we don't know yet.
Yeah, one more question is, the group, the study group that was followed since the 80s, or born in the 80s.
Yeah.
And they had two different times where they got together and there was information drawn from that group. And then the last one had a sleep study added.
Yes.
Why was that sleep study added? Was that part of your, did you have?
Was I the impetus for that?
Yeah.
No. They were already interested in looking at that with their own. They actually, and we've done now multiple grants we've actually submitted together to look at more things. Runa, who's doing a soccer study, will also look at sleep a little bit in young girls in Iceland. But no, the sleep was going to be added with or without me. So that's really great. I didn't have to push for that at all. They were very interested in that. But you're right, it wasn't done in the past years, probably just because sleep as a field is pretty new. So it probably just wasn't necessarily on the radar as an interest, maybe. I'm like looking at the back, like, is that gonna sound right? Yeah, Suna knows. So we won't be able to compare except to questionnaire data, what was going on in the past years. But good question. Yeah.
Well, I think we're coming to the end of our time. So again, I'm going to read here your little Fulbright gift and your Fulbright pin from Fulbright Iceland and your certificate of completion of your Fulbright grant. Yes, so I want to first thank our audience, both the people who came in person and those who joined us virtually. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. This always makes me so thankful for the Fulbright program, which allows us to foster collaboration in a wide variety of disciplines. And these two really show us the beauty of the Fulbright program, right? With such diverse but equally fascinating projects that both contribute to our well-being in different ways, right? To the two of you, I just want to say that I hope that we're going to see more of you. And I know that you're going to continue to collaborate with your new friends and colleagues here in Iceland. And I hope that when you return to the US, you're going to stay connected. You're going to be proud to call yourselves alums of the Fulbright Iceland program and, for years to come. As I've said on many occasions, our alumni are our most valuable asset, and we count on you to sort of help us in building the further academic ties between the two countries. And, once again, I want to thank you for presenting today. You've made the commission proud. And, again, we hope to see you back here often. And I think at the end, we should give just a round of applause to both of our Before we sign off, I want to mention that we have another Fulbright Forum coming up on December 11th on the important subject of cybersecurity. So stay tuned to our website and to our social media. You won't want to miss that one. And we hope to see all of you who are here again. Until next time, we will continue to forge a better future with Fulbright.